Let me start today's video by saying, if you don't have enough money to pay your monthly bills conveniently, and if you're under the age of 18, a trust is not for you, okay? This doesn't mean that it won't be for you in the future, and so this is still information that you would need, but I'm just saying that you should know in your mind that these two things are quite important in setting up a trust. Hello and welcome. Thank you for stopping by. If this is your first time, my name is Ibukun. Do hit the subscribe button and join the family. I simplify legal concept and the law in Nigeria to help you navigate daily life and activities easier. So if this is something that you find useful, do stay tuned, and we're going to get into today's topic. What exactly is a trust in Nigeria? This is something that a lot of people have asked me about, and I wanted to just put it in a video to help you understand and see if you can take advantage of the concept. Now, most people have the misconception that only high net worth individuals, that is billionaires and multi-millionaires, can set up a trust or take advantage of this tool, but I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. If you're financially stable, this is something that you should consider getting involved in. The definition of a trust under the law is an arrangement where a person who is called the settlor, that is the owner of the assets that we're going to be transferring, transfers his interest and his rights in property or personal items to another person who is called the trustee and who holds these items for the benefit of the beneficiary, called the sett trust. Three parties involved in this arrangement. One person owns it but has the intention to benefit another person, and there's a middleman who holds these items for the benefit of that person. That is simplified legal definition of trust. A trust is generally seen as an estate planning tool. Estate planning is a situation whereby you want to get your assets managed, you want to decide how you want to invest or deal with all the things that you own. So either it's money, either it's shares, either it's real estate, or just other interests like in a business. You want to decide, okay, this is how I want my properties to be handled. So that's estate planning. Usually people see it as something that is to be done for death reasons, but it's bigger than that. Other tools that you can also take advantage of for estate planning. Now, you can have a will, you can have a power of attorney, you can have letters of administration, which is also referred to as probate, although this is usually in a case after the person has passed on. We have three parties. We have the owner of the assets called the settlor, we have the trustee that is appointed, and then we have the beneficiary, who's the person on whose behalf this arrangement has been made. Now, the trustee can be a business, that is a company that is dealing in trust services. It can be a person, anybody that you choose. It can be a family member, it can be your spouse, it can be a good friend, it can also be your lawyer or your financial advisor. So people who you definitely have some confidence in are the people that can be your trustees. The first step in creating a trust is to decide by yourself what arrangement and if this is for you. And like I said earlier, you want to look at your financial standing in deciding if a trust is for you in the first place. When you've done that, you want to contact a person that is going to set up your trust to help you also decide what exactly you want to do with the trust. When you contacted this person, the other thing to do is decide what type of trust you want to be involved in. So we have trusts such as educational trust, we have trusts such as living trust, we have trusts for a lot of things. It can be very specific what the trust is for. So the next thing is to draft your deed of trust. Your deed of trust is that governing document, is your terms and conditions for exactly what it is and how you want your trust to be administered. Once you've done that, then you're going to have to execute this deed of trust. So there are various levels. There's getting a notary public involved, getting witnesses involved, getting stamp duties. Once you've perfected that document, then you want to transfer your assets into the trust. And so if you have land, you have shares, you have a business, transfer your cars, anything that you own, you can just say, I now wish that this item is put in this trust for the benefit of my child, my spouse, even for the benefit of yourself. One of the trusts that we have that I mentioned is living trust. For living trust, it is that you're alive and then this trust is in place. You can also name yourself as the beneficiary and probably paid a monthly allowance, or your house rent is paid. A trust is that arrangement that allows you so much control of what it is you want to achieve, and you can talk with the party that is helping you set it up to ensure that all the details and all your wishes are documented. And you just want to determine how long you want your trust to be for. Is it only for your children? Is it only for your spouse? Is it going to go to your grandchildren? Is it going to go to a charity? Is it going to, how long is it going to be for? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or as long as the assets are in place or the beneficiaries are alive? And you also want to decide if you want to transfer. So the trust is, I want my child to own all of this by the time the child is 21, and so that trust also takes effect and everything then vests in your child. You want to be as detailed as possible and think about your wishes when coming up with the trust arrangement. People that can help you set up a trust are corporate bodies that deal in trust services. In Nigeria, we have about 26 trust companies. They're banks or subsidiaries of banks that deal in financial matters. They usually have been licensed by the Securities and Exchange Commission or registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission to deal in that. You can also use your lawyer to set up your trust. You can also use your financial advisor. Anyone that has the competence or has handled such a matter is able. These three people are usually able to help you create your trust. Note that it is something that is very technical and needs a lot of expertise. So please do not draft an agreement by yourself and say that you have, done a trust deed. It might be good, but I assure you that there are things that you would not foresee that you're going to need an expert to help you with. This takes me to the point that a lot of companies are now the popular choice because they have the system and to help people up their trust. So rather than start from scratch, usually these people already have formats of how the agreement looks. They already have educational trust funds set up, and you just have to put in your extra wishes and directions. They know how much it's going to cost. They already have the setup, so it's easier for you to set up the trust using these companies. You should also know that anybody can be your trustee. Like I mentioned, as long as you trust this person and the person is of legal age, you're good to go. So it can be your spouse. Don't feel the pressure to use a company or to use your lawyer as your trustee. It can be a person that you choose. So like I said, even though you can use companies and they will be your trustee automatically because that's how their setup is, you can just pick a person, use your lawyer or your financial advisor to draft your trust agreement or your deed of trust that states your wishes. You should also know that once a person becomes your trustee, they have duties towards you and towards the trust, or towards the beneficiary of the trust generally. That's the duty to act within the confines of what the trust deed says. And so your wishes are supposed to be conveyed to the letter, the person is not allowed to then go outside your wish in terms of you set up an educational trust and then it is used for expenses that are not educational. That is going against the wishes of the trust that it was set up. Your trustee has to follow your instructions to the letter. Although there's some flexibility and discretion in terms of achieving that aim, the actual aim cannot be changed. Your trustee also has a duty, a fiduciary duty to you, that is, there are high standards expected of that person. The person has to act with diligence, the person has to act with loyalty towards you, the person has to be accountable and transparent with the dealings in the trust. A trustee also is required to have knowledge and deal very, very intentionally and decisively with the trust assets. So no mismanagement. Like I said, record keeping is important, managing the assets so that the aim is achieved. I'm going to give an example here. So you want your child's education to be funded for the rest of their stay. So let's say the child is in primary school. So we have 6 years of high school and we have maybe 4, 5, 6 years of university. That's about 12 years. Let's add a master's degree. That's about 13 years together. This 13 years, the person has to manage your assets such that the fund for the 13 years is covered. And so if you say my child is going to go to Abele school, this is the amount of money the school fees is. The money that you have put in the trust ought to be invested such that those objectives can be achieved. Trustee also has power, okay? So you have to know that your trustee can sell property or handle the assets you have transferred in such a way that multiplies it or at least preserves it. So at the least, your trust ought to preserve your property. What are the benefits actually of setting up a trust? Why should you get involved in it? Why should you give it a thought? One of the things that is high on the list is that your assets would compound and accumulate in a trust. So you can put all your assets together and they are supposed to be invested. So your assets in a trust cannot be left fallow. They will depreciate if that is allowed, and so depreciation is prevented by investing those assets. So if it's a house, maybe it's rented out and then rent income is gotten from it. If it's shares, then the shares have dividends that come into it. If it's a company shares are managed such that profits come into. So there has to be, if it's money, then money has to be invested into something, a safe investment that is going to yield returns, or at least at the worst scenario you invest it in bonds or a savings account to ensure that inflation doesn't overtake it. And so that's one of the benefits of putting your assets in a trust and not just leaving it to itself. Now, if you use someone that is known to you and hasn't had expert knowledge, that person is supposed to seek knowledge on how to best manage the assets in the trust. One of the benefits of a trust is also that your estate is kept private. So the value or the assets in the trust are going to be kept private. Unlike when you have a will, and it goes through the probate process, your will is going to be made public. So everything you own, who it goes to, is going to be in the public domain. So if you're trying to avoid that, a trust is something that you want to set up. The other thing is that you have wishes and you set them out expressly, and those wishes are met to the letter. And so you're sure that somebody is going to be working on your behalf. And so your wishes, oh, I wish that this is paid for. Guess what? You don't have to think about school fees every month. Guess what? You don't have to think about your house rent every month. It can be so detailed that everything is covered. So you can cover a lot of things. You can cover even for yourself. You can say, I want this to be done at this time. So it's not just for life after you. Like I said, there's something called a living trust. And so even while you're here, you can transfer your assets because you don't have the time, or you just want better management of that asset to someone else. The other benefit is that your beneficiaries, or if you have children, will be well taken care of even when you're not around. So you're sure that no matter what happens to you, or even if you're sick, people don't think about it in those terms. It's not about you dying, they're about you planning effectively. The one that I enjoy the most is that unlike a will, which is also a tool for estate planning, a trust cannot be contested, and so your wishes are final. And it's going to be set basically in stone, with the exception of a living trust or a trust where you still have some control. In those cases, there may be circumstances where some things are altered. One of the major reasons that a lot of people get involved in trusts, especially high net worth individuals, is a way to manage their taxation. And so in Nigeria, we have the Personal Income Tax Act, which applies to all people that are residents in Nigeria. And this act imposes a tax on all income that you earn. And this tax is about 20% of your income. And so using a trust, you're able to not pay tax on the income that is already in the trust, because it's not your money, and so it's not personal income to you. It is income that is in the trust. A clause there, though, is that your trustee or your beneficiary may still be taxed, because the beneficiary is receiving income, especially if it's going to be income money. It's a different thing if it's for like a house or to pay rent, but if the person is going to receive cash payments, then it is income to that person is going to be taxed. Also, if money left in the fund is not apportioned, that is not set to go into something, so to buy a house, to buy a car, to pay for school, if there's money that is just there, that is just being invested, that money can also be taxed. Okay, so there are things to note. However, generally it's a good tool to use in terms of managing how much tax you pay. Another major benefit of a trust is that you don't pay estate tax. So estate tax is the tax that is levied by the government on your estate after you pass. So before your beneficiaries or those you leave behind are able to take advantage of your estate, that is your house, your car, your money in the bank, your shares, the government is going to value everything and charge a 10% tax on that estate before it goes to the benefit of anybody that is alive after you. And so a trust is a perfect way to avoid that. Assets in a trust are not subject to estate tax. Imagine that you're saving your family a whole 10%. A whole 10% is a lot of money. 10% of 100 million is 10 million naira. That's a lot of money. So it's something to consider. It's worth considering setting up a trust, if only for that reason. There's also capital gains tax that is paid on profits that are derived from sales or disposition of assets, and so that is tax that can also be imposed on the trust. And so you should think about the tax implications of a trust before you set it up. Next thing we're going to look at are the laws that would regulate the trust arrangement. The Finance Act of 2019 is a law that has implications that impact the trust, and one of it is that government is allowed to look into trusts now. So the government can get information on what assets are in a trust and how it is being handled. For the purpose of taxation, they have created this new provisions to allow them access into trusts. The Constitution definitely is one law that governs all transactions and all people in Nigeria. We have the Companies and Allied Matters Act in cases where a company is involved. We have the Securities and Exchange Commission rules. We have the Securities and Exchange Commission Code of Conduct for Trustees. We have the Trustee Act. We have the Trustee Investment Act, the Personal Income Tax Act. We have the Land Use Act, Stamp Duties Act. Laws of each state also are going to regulate your trust, and the Pensions Reform Act. These laws are not directly laws on trust, but they impact your trust arrangements because there are various provisions that have an impact on how a trust is set up. Who regulates the trust? Okay, and so we have the Securities and Exchange Commission. Like I've said, they license companies to deal in trusts, and in cases where there are securities being traded by the trust, the Securities and Exchange Commission regulates those. The court of law also regulates a trust. So if you feel like your trustee is mismanaging the assets, or the beneficiary feels like the trustee is mismanaging the assets, they can go to the court to get a form of justice. Claim of breach of trust. Assets can be traced. Injunction can be sought against the trustee. There can also be criminal prosecutions in certain situations where fraud is involved on the part of the trustee. So be rest assured that there are safeguards for you in dealing with a trust. A few things that I want you to think about also when you're thinking about whether you want a trust arrangement is, how much money do I have? How much are my assets? You want to also think about, am I going to be dealing in these assets? Because once you create a trust, the assets you transfer are no longer yours, except it's a living trust where you have some control over how the terms can be. You can change the terms from time to time to accommodate your need at that time. Otherwise, it's set in stone. You don't own this property anymore. There are benefits to that in the sense that if there's a creditor or you owe money or their debts, your assets cannot be used to pay off those debts. So, like I said, your family is pretty secure because you have taken out the interest. It's no longer your property. It's no longer your estate. It is now vested for the benefit of your family or whoever it is that you have set it up to benefit, and it will not be affected. Unless, like I said, it's a living trust, and that can be a little technical in terms of how that dynamic works when your creditors say, oh, this person, because the law is going to look into how the trust was being handled to decide if the interest was still yours, and so if your creditor can have access to it. You want to think about the assets you want to put in it in terms of dealing with it. Do you want to sell a property after a few years? You also want to update your trust from time to time, because as you grow your assets, you can also grow the assets in the trust. You also want to think about the administrative costs that are involved in setting up a trust. It's about 5 to 15% of the value of your estate, and so that's a lot of money. Like I said at the beginning, you need to be sure that your basic bills are settled before you consider getting a trust arrangement set up. Now, I hope this video was helpful for you, and I hope that it helped you understand what a trust is. If you have any questions, do ask me in the comment section. I have left a list of trustees I found. I have no links to them. This is not sponsored, but to help you shop around for corporate trustees. Okay, like I said, you can use your lawyer or your financial advisor, but if you want to use a company, I've left a list in the description box of some companies that I found that offer trust services. So don't limit yourself to just one. Look around, see what terms they give you, and then decide which one you want to go with. It's been fun sharing this information with you. I hope you give this video a thumbs up. I hope you subscribe, and I hope you come back and watch my next video. Bye.